Have you ever felt like you're constantly running a race you can't win? A race to be good enough, smart enough, successful enough? It's a quiet, persistent feeling, isn't it? A little voice that whispers you're still falling short. This feeling often has roots that go way back to a place that was supposed to be our safest harbor, home. Some of us grew up in homes that felt like a sanctuary, a place of unconditional safety and love. But for many others, home was a place of quiet uncertainty. It wasn't necessarily about harsh words or obvious neglect. It was more subtle. It was love that felt conditional, attention that was inconsistent, and acceptance that seemed to depend entirely on our behavior, our grades, or even just the mood of the adults around us. Psychology has a very clear understanding of what happens in this environment. A child who never feels enough at home doesn't grow up to be a highly motivated adult. Instead, they often carry a deep-seated existential shame. They leave home not with a drive to succeed, but with a wound that whispers, "There's something wrong with me." Let's explore the 7 deep-seated psychological mechanisms that take hold when a child grows up feeling they are not enough. Understanding these can be the first step toward healing. The very first and most profound mechanism is the internalization of a critical gaze. Think about it. A baby isn't born thinking, "I am flawed." This is a learned belief. It's learned when praise is a rare treat, but correction is a daily meal. It's learned when achieving success is just meeting the baseline expectation, but making a mistake is treated like a major catastrophe. It's learned when love and affection seem to appear only after expectations are met, and then vanish the moment there's a hint of disappointment. Over time, something happens. The parent's physical voice is no longer needed to point out the flaws. The child starts to do it themselves. They begin to constantly correct, monitor, and control their own thoughts and actions, holding themselves to an impossible standard. This internal voice doesn't just go away when they grow up. It stays for years, sometimes for a lifetime. In adulthood, it manifests as that relentless inner critic who is never, ever satisfied. No achievement is ever good enough to silence it. The second mechanism is a deeply ingrained confusion between one's worth and one's function. Children who felt they weren't enough were very often valued for what they did, not for who they were. They were praised for being well-behaved, for being helpful, for being ambitious, or for being wonderfully undemanding. A simple but destructive equation gets programmed into their psyche. I am only worth something when I am useful and meet expectations. As adults, this translates into a life of chronic doing, often without any real sense of fulfillment. They become high achievers, people pleasers, and workaholics, not out of passion, but out of a desperate need to feel worthy. Every success feels temporary. The relief it brings is painfully brief. And then, the emptiness returns, pushing them to chase the next achievement, the next validation, hoping this time it will finally stick. This leads us to the third, very painful consequence: constant, unrelenting comparison. If the soundtrack of your childhood included phrases like, "You could have done better," or "Look at how well so-and-so is doing," or "This still isn't quite it," you learn to see yourself through a lens of deficiency. You're always looking for what's missing. In adulthood, this pattern of comparison becomes an automatic reflex. There is always someone who seems smarter, more successful, more stable, more attractive, or more fulfilled. Social media becomes a minefield of perceived inadequacies. Psychologically, this isn't about healthy ambition. It's not about being inspired by others. It's a desperate, ongoing attempt to finally prove to yourself, and to that old inner voice, that you finally deserve your place in the world. The fourth mechanism is a deep-seated fear of being truly oneself. A child who receives only conditional acceptance learns a crucial survival skill very early on. They learn to wear masks. They figure out which parts of themselves are welcomed and applauded, and they show those parts to the world. And they learn which parts are inconvenient or undesirable, and they hide those parts away. Their real emotions are filtered, their genuine needs are minimized. Authenticity becomes a high-stakes risk. In adulthood, such a person often has no idea who they really are without a role to play. They feel okay only when they are serving some function for others, the perfect employee, the supportive friend, the flawless partner. The idea of just being without performing or producing can feel terrifying and empty. The question, "What do I want?" can be met with a genuine blank confusion. The fifth consequence is the burden of chronic guilt and shame. This isn't guilt for a specific wrongdoing. It's a pervasive, free-floating shame for simply existing. It's feeling guilty for taking up space, for having needs, for wanting to rest. Psychologically, this is the direct result of growing up in a home where a child's emotions were treated as a problem to be solved, rather than a signal to be understood. If crying was met with, "Stop being so dramatic," or needs were met with sighs of frustration, the child learns, "My feelings are a burden." In adulthood, this manifests as excessive apologizing for things that aren't their fault, an inability to set healthy boundaries for fear of inconveniencing others, and a constant, nagging fear of being a burden. This person often preemptively makes themselves small or disappears from a situation before anyone else has the chance to reject them. The sixth, very deep mechanism is the dependence of one's self-worth on external validation. Children who didn't feel enough at home spend the rest of their lives looking for that feeling of enoughness everywhere else. They seek it at work, hoping a promotion will finally make them feel worthy. They seek it in relationships, hoping a partner's love will fill the void. They seek it in achievements, in accolades, in being needed by everyone. The fundamental problem is that no amount of external validation can ever last long enough. It's like pouring water into a bucket with a hole in it. The gap it's trying to fill was created in the earliest and most fundamental relationship of all. The ache isn't about the present moment. It's an echo of a past where a child needed to see their worth reflected in their parents' eyes and did not. Finally, the seventh consequence is the difficulty in receiving love without fear. For someone who has only known conditional love, genuine, unconditional warmth can feel deeply unsettling. When someone shows them kindness or affection, instead of relaxing into it, a profound tension appears. Their mind starts racing with questions. When will this end? What will they expect in return? When will they see the real me and leave? For people with this background, love itself can feel suspicious, because it was never experienced in a form that didn't have strings attached. The psyche remains on high alert, constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop for the moment when it's revealed that, once again, they are not enough. But here's the most important truth in all of this. If you recognize yourself in these patterns, please hear this. A child who did not feel enough at home was never, ever insufficient. The problem was not a lack of worth within the child. The problem was being in an environment that was incapable of seeing and reflecting that worth. A persistent lack of self-worth is not proof of your own lack of value. It is proof of the absence of a mirror in which you could have seen yourself clearly, without shame. Healing begins with understanding this. It begins with slowly, patiently building your own mirror, one that reflects the truth of who you are, whole, worthy, and always, always enough. Thank you for watching.